Cheers.
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 Yeah.
Are we we're rolling? All right, guys, what's going on? It's Halsey Schider with the Helicopter Podcast, and today, this is a podcast that I've wanted to do for a long time, and you may recognize Jon Gray from the Hangar Z is joining me in this collaboration. We have Daniel Aufdenblatten.
Yeah, that's correct.
Did I do it?
Yeah.
I was very nervous about that. In fact, Daniel was just explaining the origin of his last name, and I learned something. Daniel, of course, is the CEO of Air Zermatt, so obviously just extremely excited to have that conversation. But you actually grew up in Zermatt.
I grew up there, yeah. Both my parents are from Zermatt, so mother and father side. I'm a real native, I would call it.
It's got to be one of the most beautiful places in the world.
It is. For me, it is the most beautiful place. I mean, I love traveling around. I had the privilege to see many parts of the world, but going home it's just going home.
Yeah, it's home is the place that always just feels special. That's kind of I grew up actually in an area that I think you might be a little familiar with, in Lake Oswego, which is right near
Oregon,
Hillsboro. So that's something Daniel and I have in common, John, is we both went to Hillsboro Aviation and learned how to fly. And I feel the same way when I go back to Lake Oswego. There's just something about it.
Yeah, it's so beautiful.
And it's not as beautiful, though, I'm sure, as Zermatt. I mean,
it's different. Before I came here to the show, I spent a week at the West Coast. So we were staying one night at the Cannon Beach.
I love Cannon, of course. Haystack Rock.
Haystack Rock. So
Acola State Park there.
I was Googling real estate in Oregon.
I love that.
The first house that came, it was right on a cliff on the coast. You had the forest in the back. You had the beach down. And there was a helipad before the house.
Oh, perfect.
Really?
So, I told my wife, that must be a sign.
This is like, we have to have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Pacific Northwest is, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful places. Where I currently live in Bend, beautiful mountains all around. Mm-hmm. There's rock climbing, there's kayaking, there's hiking, skiing. And so, the Earth is truly a beautiful place, honestly. And there's just so many cool different spots. And I've actually never been to Zermatt. Now, in Amsterdam, you did invite me. And so
I did.
I know that's an open invitation.
Also for you.
All right, I'm in.
So maybe next year when we go to European Roaders, maybe we can parlay it and check out Zermatt, because it looks like a beautiful area.
You have to visit it.
And I think that actually something that's unique about helicopters is when you're in a beautiful area, helicopters just make it even better, right? When you're flying around and you're in beautiful landscape, and it makes sense, right? That's why there's tourism helicopters in Hawaii, in the Grand Canyon, in Zermatt.
And I've seen a nice sticker today. I love airplane noise, something like that.
I love that too. Yeah, I'm sure the neighbors do, for sure. So let's just start a little bit from the beginning. Obviously, now you're leading this company. That's incredible. But when did helicopters start for you, and what was your journey to get to where you are now?
Oh, man, and really, I got this question asked a lot. It's really since
your tag is messed up. It's like he's never podcasted before.
I got excited. He gave me a cool present.
This way.
Oh my gosh, John! Hold together. Okay, this is a professional podcast.
Sorry, you gave me a beer and some presents, and I got excited. Yeah, cheers.
Yeah, hold on. I gotta get my water. Cheers.
Cheers again.
Drink of the day.
Drink of the day.
Corona, and I got the Aquafina.
That's the spicy Aquafina.
I wish. You think it's water? It's actually full of vodka.
No, really. Since I remember, I grew as you said, I grew up in Zermatt. Really, since I can remember, I always wanted to be an Air Zermatt helicopter pilot, and I tell this story quite a lot. The first memories I have of all this wanting to become a pilot is when I was in kindergarten. We have that. I'm not sure if that's common in the U.S. Like 24 days before Christmas, each day you open a door.
Advent calendar.
Yep. Advent calendar.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So every kid had to do a painting for the Advent calendar.
Okay.
So and there was a big wall at the church. So when kindergarten was over, all the parents came and they opened a door. For 24 days. So every child was painting like a Santa Claus or a tree, gifts, whatever. And I was painting an Alert 3 of Air Zermatt.
Oh, that's so cool.
The first rescue helicopter.
I love that. I love that.
So I remember when they opened the door, everyone was laughing because nobody expected it.
They're like, what's an Alouette? What is that? It's funny, actually, how, and I don't know if this was similar to you, Jon, but for me as well, I mean, I knew I wanted to be a pilot when I was very little.
Yep.
And helicopters wasn't necessarily the beginning. Helicopters are so obscure, really, so it didn't seem like I was going to be a helicopter pilot. Mm-hmm. But I saw an air medical helicopter land at a campground one time, and it was like, oh my gosh.
That was the opening.
That was the opening. And so it's funny, it starts so young. Was that similar to you?
Yeah. It was fixed wing. It was actually fighter jets, of course.
Of course.
When I was little.
Same.
Because I didn't understand what helicopters were like you. And, it was just an evolution of understanding aviation and the world. And helicopters is, to me now, I'd much rather be a helicopter pilot than any other kind of pilot. So I love your story. It's really cool.
Yeah, that's my first memory, really.
That's so cool.
Ever since I remember, that was always what I wanted to do.
Well, and Air Zermatt, I think, has been around, since 1963 or something like that? Or 68.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a program with so much legacy, which I think is one of the incredible parts of it. So you've had this passion, but you actually ended up going the airplane route first, correct?
Yeah, it was also there. It's funny because back then, the whole situation was a bit different. Like the pilots that were flying at Air Zermatt, I mean, they didn't move. I mean, not in a sense they did not work, but they were staying there.
Yeah, they weren't leaving.
They weren't leaving. So that was the case for many years. Like today, we regularly have, almost every year we have some changes in pilot stuff. But back then it was never the case. So as a kid, everybody told me, there's no chance, you will never get there.
You'll never get this.
You forget it, you'll never get there. So I kind of let myself, how would you call that in English? I let myself I guided myself in the wrong direction. So then I thought, okay, if I cannot fly helicopters, then at least I want to fly airplanes.
Yeah.
So, and then back then there was at Swissair, you had that program. They you had to do all kind of tests, and if you passed the test, they would pay for your training, and as soon as you got hired, you would pay them.
Oh, interesting. Back, kind of like a contract pay style.
Exactly, like 10 years, you would pay a certain amount back. So then I was almost done at Swissair with the training. I was just it was called the bridge course on the A320, and then 9/11 happened.
Mm-hmm.
And everything
changed.
Everything changed. They literally, we were in the simulator, and they shut off the simulator. That's it.
Wow.
And then Swissair went bankrupt, and I was that was quite of a tough time, of course. And and then I thought, okay, I just have to stay somewhere near the airplanes to at least smell
The jet fuel?
the
Yeah.
jet fuel.
Of course.
Right. So I was loading bags at the airport of Zurich.
Okay.
Yeah. So for about half a year, I was loading bags.
Wow.
And then, that was almost like in the movies. You know, you lose your job.
Yeah.
I didn't.
It's sad.
I mean, I didn't quite lose my job. I could never start it
yeah.
because
It didn't even start.
it hadn't even started. And then my girlfriend left me. I remember.
This sounds like a country western
Yeah.
song.
It's really. And then I thought, okay, now
This is
I
horrible.
mean, it's time to go. So I ended up in Hillsborough.
Yeah.
So because back then that was probably the only school that had that J visa,
Mm-hmm.
which allowed a European to stay for 2 years.
Mm.
So for me, the choice was obvious to do that. And I didn't really have to do the whole training again. For example, the whole navigation stuff and things like that. It was all credited from my airplane training.
Yeah, you knew it.
So I remember I started in November, I think. And I did the private license, commercial CFI instrument, CFII was finished in April.
Holy
Oh
cow.
my gosh.
So I think I did the whole program in about 5 months.
That's insane.
Yeah. Because back then you wanted to be done with the training as quick as possible. So
Right.
you
You
would
had
have
extended time to instruct.
the remaining time to instruct.
That's wild.
It's time for your HeliLife giveaway secret word. Listen up and remember this word because you'll need it to enter for a chance to win exclusive HeliLife gear. Ready? This episode's secret word is turbine. Visit contests.verticalhelicasts.com to enter the secret word.
Yeah, the visa, I think when I was there, the visa ended up changing. Obviously, I was from there, so I didn't have to navigate the complexity. But I think the visa had changed because we still had a ton of European students.
Yeah.
And essentially, I think when their training stopped, then they had 2 years from that date, I think, or maybe a year
2
to
years.
continue
yeah,
to
I
work.
think yeah.
But yeah, you're right. Before that,
Yeah.
they had like 2 years total, training and instructing.
That was my case.
Yeah, and so a lot of
Yeah.
people had to go, and then about halfway through my training,
Yeah.
that changed.
Yeah,
And so
okay.
they got kind of unlimited
Uh-huh.
training. I think they could take 3 or 4 years as
Okay.
long as they were in school.
Uh-huh.
And then they had like the 2 years. So did you instruct then at Hillsborough?
I was instructing at Hillsborough, and then again, funny story. Because we had like that student housing back then.
Oh, yeah.
So there were like 10, 15 students, and we all had a beer then. I remember that. And then that visa came up somehow. I don't remember how, but then everyone took his visa out in the passport.
Yeah.
And in every visa it said that you had a working permit for 2 years, but flight instruction only.
Oh.
It said on the visa.
Wow.
So I checked my visa and said, well, there's nothing in here. So I don't have that restriction.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know how. Probably somebody from the Swiss embassy just forgot
Yeah, forgot to put the thing.
to put that in. So then I thought, okay, then I was instructing already for quite a while at Hillsborough. So I had that magical 1,000 hours.
Of course, yeah.
And then there was a company back then. It was called Air Photo. So they had
Yeah.
R22s,
Yeah.
and they did like aerial pictures of houses.
Yep.
It was
And
of
then
course
they would
before the
sell.
drones.
They would come up, they would
Exactly.
fly, and then you would get a little
Yeah.
mailer. I had a friend that did that.
Yeah. Okay. So that was of course before the drones.
Yeah.
Long before,
Uh,
yeah.
And they had salesmen, like you said, all over the country.
Yep.
So, I was maybe at the West Coast, and then a week later I was in Texas. Then I was going up to Oklahoma, to Atlanta, whatever. So I was flying literally all around the U.S.
Yeah, it's cool.
Oh, that was so great.
I think that's great as a young pilot because you're getting experience flying in different areas with different weather, different terrain, different class of airspace, different controllers. Yeah. Like all of that stuff as a young pilot makes you so much better. That's really cool.
Yeah, it was so cool. And then I thought, okay, why don't I try to apply at one of the tour companies? So, but that was quite late in my visa time, and I remember I think I was writing first to Papillon back then.
Yep.
In Las Vegas, and I remember I had my first cell phone then, and I
was it this big?
Yeah, probably this big.
A big brick.
Yeah.
He's not that old.
Well, I remember those cell phones. You know, they were I'm like, these are so cool, but they're big.
Yeah,
you know?
They're big. And then the chief pilot of Papillon, he called me and said, if you want to fly AStars, come back and come to Las Vegas, and we want to look at you. And then I thought, okay, I cannot, I don't want to travel to Vegas. And then I tell him I have a visa.
Yeah.
And he says, okay, we cannot do that. So I immediately told him. And he said, well, for us, it's not a problem. We can always use seasonal pilots. And then I ended up there, and I did on the BA back then.
Wow.
I did that Grand Canyon tour.
Yeah.
And we lived, we were 3 pilots and also like in a pilot housing. And I was 25, I think, back then. So 25 years old in Las Vegas.
Yeah, that spells trouble.
Flying helicopters.
Flying helicopters. So it was, it was fantastic.
So you're saying within a 2-year span, you trained, instructed, air photo, and Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
How many hours did you get in that time?
I went back to Switzerland with about 1,800 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, that's actually really impressive. That's not easy to do. My buddy AJ flew that air photo. And, he got so much time because he said that he flew
10
all
hours
day,
a day.
every day.
Yeah.
And essentially, I guess he started like in Oregon, and some guy started in New York, and another R22, and they just kind of
exactly.
fly until they meet in the middle, and then they do it again. It's like absolutely insane. So you go back to Switzerland. Did you go direct to Air Zermatt then?
We know you love helicopters. That's why you're here. But are you ready to make it a career? Hillsboro Heli Academy has been making dreams of flying helicopters come true since 1980. Visit us at flyhaa.com and dream big.
Yeah. I remember when, because my goal ultimately, of course, was always to fly in Zermatt.
Mm-hmm.
So back then I was, because when I was in, what would that be in the US? Probably high school or college. I don't understand the difference till today. But when I was studying, I already worked as a window cleaner at Air Zermatt.
Oh, so you had already been there? Was an employee there?
Yeah. So I knew most of the people there, and I was always more or less in contact with them.
Yeah.
So they and it was probably the same story like every other pilot does. Do the private license and then call me back. Okay, I did the private license. Do your commercial license and then call us again. I did my commercial license. Call me back when I have 200 hours. Okay, I had 200 hours. Call me back when you have 1,000 hours. I had this. Call me back when you have some turbine. So it was always going
the
on
next
like
thing.
this. Always the next thing. And then I came back to Switzerland. And I remember at Air Zermatt they told me we don't have an opening right now, but you had there might be an opening with a company. It was called Heloc back then from Switzerland. They had Pumas, and they had a contract with the United Nations
Okay.
to fly in Africa.
Oh, wow.
So, and I said, well,
Okay.
it's maybe not what I ultimately wanted, but why not? I don't care.
Sure.
Yeah, if I can fly somewhere, I'll be happy. So then I met the chief pilot back then, which, funny enough, later worked for Air Zermatt as well. And he said to me, yeah, no, well, that's good. Next week there will be a ground course for the Puma. You can go there, and then you do the training and off to Africa. And I was, yeah, perfect. I was really happy. I remember I went to dinner with my wife. I told her, now I have one step, somewhere.
I have something.
Yeah, I have something. And then a day later he called me and said, do you have an EASA license? Back then it was called CHAR. I don't know if you remember, but
no.
it was kind of before EASA. Let's call it an EASA license. So he asked me, do you have an EASA license? I said, no, I don't have one, but I did already all the ground classes.
Sure.
The only thing I need to do a check ride. Give me 3 days to do a check ride, and he said, no, sorry, it doesn't work then, because you have to have it before you start ground classes. And I told him again, well, I need 3 days.
Yeah, just let me do it.
Yeah, but it somehow didn't work out. So, and then a few weeks later, Air Zermatt called me, and they said, come on over and you have to meet our boss. He will do an interview. Of course, I was, very nervous.
Yeah, of course.
And the interview went so bad, I remember.
Probably because you're so nervous.
Not really, but I just, the questions, the question was, I think the boss back then, I'm good friends with him today.
Okay, so you guys are buddies still.
Yeah. So he asked me, I had the impression he turned everything I said the other way. So,
Okay.
for example, he was I remember that he was asking, are you a team player? I said, well, yeah, all the work I did so far, it was always in a team. I don't really know it different.
Right.
So you cannot do something on your own? So well, yeah, I
I'm a
can.
team player.
Kind of this stuff. So I told him that actually a few years ago.
That's funny.
And I remember I came down the stairs and there was one of our paramedics and he asked me, so how did it go? And I told him, I will never work here.
Not good.
There's no way they take me.
That's funny.
But it turned out to be okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how long ago was that?
That was in 2005.
Okay, so
Yeah.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
God, math, and then I'm like, okay, I can.
This is
do
math
that.
I can do.
That's math I can
Nice round numbers.
easily do.
Yeah.
Do you remember your first interview
I don't.
for like a job that you really wanted?
I don't. I remember going into interviews in the police department for promotions and stuff like that, but I don't remember the initial interviews. But I remember the ones that, within the police department that I really wanted, and you're so nervous because you want it so bad. And you think, you can't sleep the night before because you're so excited for this interview. So I think of you as, going back to 3-year-old you, drawing a picture of Air Zermatt, and here's 25-year-old you walking into this interview. You're so excited.
That's the day. That is the day you worked.
Happen. Yeah.
You worked for the entire career.
Yeah.
Career. Well, it was in the beginning, but that was the day you were looking for all the time.
Yeah. So
it went terribly bad. I remember.
That's
really
how
bad.
crushed were you when you left?
Oh, I was completely crushed.
How long did they wait to call you and tell you?
I don't remember. Maybe a few days. I don't remember.
I'm guessing that was the worst 3 or 4 days. I had a similar situation when I applied to become a flight instructor. And that's actually, it's funny to this day. When I was at Hillsborough, it was just, and I think it's the industry. It ebbs and it flows. And when I was there, people weren't leaving. It was hard for people to go and get jobs at Papillon.
Yeah.
It just they weren't hiring. It was a weird time, 2008.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, that was a bad time.
And so for me, I was like, man, if I just want to become an instructor at Hillsboro. I live here. This is easy. And so that interview was like so important to me. And I had worked at Hillsboro for a couple years before as a line guy, and I was young. I wasn't always great. And so I didn't think I was going to get it. And, yeah, I interviewed. It went pretty good. But then I had to wait like 3 or 4 days. And I just remember, like,
It's sitting
are
by
they
the
calling?
phone.
Are they
Are they calling? Are they calling?
Yeah.
And luckily I got the job. But that 3 or 4 days, I bet my heart aged,
Yeah.
10 years.
Yeah.
It's because it's a lot, right? It's like
Yeah,
it's
it's
you.
a
You feel
lot
like it's
of
your
weight somehow.
career. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So you start at you get the job.
I get the job, yeah, and then I was first working as we call it a flight assistant.
Okay.
Not preparing the loads, cleaning the windows, all that stuff.
Before you go forward, I got to know, when you got the phone call that said you're hired, what was your thought and how did you celebrate?
I was just thinking, no, I don't know, I don't remember.
Really?
Which is funny because it had to be one of the most
It was a culmination of everything.
Yeah.
things, moments in my life, I think. But I don't. I
don't
have no
remember.
idea. I don't remember.
He blacked out.
I
You
blacked
got so
out.
excited you
He was
passed
so
out.
excited. You got the job.
Yeah, right. Maybe that happened. I don't really remember. Fun enough. So
Sorry to interrupt.
So you're starting off kind of in a secondary role, flight loading.
and we have the pilots, because what makes Air Zermatt so unique is that you have all kinds of work. It's not like you have an EMS company or a news gathering or firefighting, whatever. You do all of that stuff. So then you start off with the easy stuff, like scenic flights, for example, or easy passenger flights, for example, from Zurich, Geneva airport, things like that. So you start quite slow. And I remember I had the impression I can't fly at all. I remember that very well.
You felt like you were a bad pilot?
Oh, I felt like I'm a complete beginner. And I had almost 2,000 hours back then.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. But then I was flying, in that mountains, and I did like a first basic training.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, I will never do this, because it was so different.
Yeah.
I mean, I had some experience from the Grand Canyon. We flew the BA, and there was the double seat in the front.
Yeah, sure.
So you had one passenger more. It was high, it was hot, so you had to deal with the performance if you landed there in the
of course.
at the canyon. But then in Zermatt, it was a whole new experience for me.
Yeah.
I mean the mountain, just the mountainous terrain, the altitude.
Yeah.
What was the airframe that you were flying in there?
The B2.
Okay, so
Yeah, and back then we had only one B3, which was the first series of B3s. So we had B2, B3, and the Llamas.
Mm-hmm.
So I basically learned most of the mountain flying on the Llama, which still today is one of the most iconic helicopters for me.
Anytime I've ever seen one of those, everyone stops. Like,
Yeah.
what is that?
Yeah, it is super cool.
Yeah.
So how much of your learning then at Air Zermatt was on the job training?
I would say most part because you do all that different work, so you basically you go one step further, maybe every half or a year or every season. So I started with the sling load stuff in the same year in September, I think.
Okay.
So, and then it was the first time doing sling load. and then I was feeling quite comfortable, with the scenic flights, things like that, on the Llama, on the B2s. And then I started to do the sling load, and I thought, I couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
I love your honesty.
Yeah.
No, really.
So
I felt I couldn't bring a load properly. I thought, how is this possible? And back then, I'm not sure how many hours I had, but I would say way more than 2,000.
Well, that's the interesting thing about external load, though. It's so difficult.
It's
especially in the beginning. I mean, I think I had about 1,000 hours total when I did my first external load training. And I don't do any external load. This was at Hillsborough still in an R44, training course. And I felt like I had never flown a helicopter before.
Exactly.
I literally was like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, right.
This is horrible.
Yeah.
And then the instructor gets out. He's like, just go figure it out. He was getting all pissed off. What, you're going to get out? I think that's a
Just
horrible.
when I need you.
That's a horrible idea. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I guess it worked. So
No, I mean, I had really good instructors, the old guys, and they were really patient. But at some point, of course, you had to go by yourself.
yeah, of course.
And I remember we had one big construction site. It was just above Zermatt. They were building a cable car. So there was still the old cable car on that construction site. So every time I had to come with the load, and at the very end you had to do a turn.
Ugh.
So every time I had to do the turn, I screwed up and the whole load was swinging again.
Yeah.
So I remember then at one point, it was like, I got it.
Yeah, it just kind of clicked.
It clicked. That was the word it clicked. So, and I flew myself like in a speed rush.
Yeah.
So I was trying to get faster every time, a little bit faster. And at one point, I was coming. It was because you were the we call it the bucket, the concrete bucket.
Yeah.
Where we have the concrete to for the construction site. So you had to go. You had to descend. So I was way too fast, and I had to slow down, and the whole bucket was swinging to the right. And on the Llama, it was like maybe a 700 kilogram bucket swinging out. It's literally like somebody is pulling you down.
Yeah, like pulling. Yeah.
You can't do anything anymore. And I saw a tree that was still maybe at least 50 yards away, but I knew already there I will hit the tree. So, and the bucket, it hit the tree, and it was a massive tree.
Huge,
it was just it was like a match.
Oh, jeez.
Really.
Snapped right now.
It was like a wrecking ball.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, and then of course the bucket was still, it was going from the one branch to the other, and I was sitting in that Llama,
Oh, jeez.
And then at one point I realized, I have to release the load, otherwise the helicopter is in the tree.
Yeah.
So I released the load.
Okay.
And then I landed somewhere near the construction site, and I remember the flight assistant. He was, "Why are you landing?" I said, "Well,
I need to change my underwear."
Yeah, seriously.
yeah, right." So, and then I was looking at that huge concrete bucket. It was maybe a fourth of the size because it was completely crushed.
No.
So, and there was the one guy from the construction site. He had an, how do you call the excavator? Is that the name?
Yeah, like a backhoe or excavator.
So he put the basket. He put it in the concrete from the cable car station which we built.
Yeah.
And it's still there today.
Oh.
So
it's part of it.
yeah, it's part of it.
Did you go sign it with a pen?
Now, did you think like, oh man, first I thought my interview was bad, but I got the job, and then I felt like I couldn't fly, and then I got really good, And then I got a little cocky, and I just I broke this thing.
Yeah.
Did you think that you might lose your job?
Verticon was epic. More than 600 companies, 15,000 attendees, and the cutting edge of vertical aviation technology. Next stop, Atlanta. Lottery 1 deadline is June 13th, and the show floor is filling fast. Secure your spot now at the world's largest vertical aviation show. Verticon, powered by VAI at verticon.org.
No, I don't think so. No, I was sure that I will be in trouble, but I didn't really think that I will lose my job. No, that's also the team is working well. I was sure they don't fire me.
Yeah.
But I was sure this means trouble because it was obviously
of course
a pilot's mistake. I was completely judging the situation in the wrong way. So, but it was. I remember it wasn't a big deal at the end.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
So, and just to finish the whole thing, then I became quite confident with the sling load stuff, and then I had to start the night rescue stuff, and I had my first training flights in the night. So you can imagine, in the Alps, if you're in some side valley,
that's crazy.
It's pitch dark. It's pitch dark. You don't see. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, you can say it actually.
You don't see anything.
Yeah.
So, and I remember when I did my first night training, I went back to my wife and I told her I will not. I'm not gonna make it.
Were you unaided, or did you have night vision goggles?
We had the big Spectral app, night vision goggles. I had the extremely experienced instructor, but I thought, oh man, because you're so used to fly in that area the whole time, and almost everything. You know this path where it leads. You know that rock formation. You know everything. And I had to fly to a hut. It was a small hut near the glacier, and in daylight I could find it probably. I wouldn't have to think a second. But then in the night you had that the NVG, you had that small how do you call that? From the Spectral app, you had that one
small
circle,
field of view.
Small field of view, and I couldn't find that hut.
Yeah.
And of course the instructor next to me, he was laughing.
Yeah.
Of course, he was, and I remember I was going home and I told my wife, well, I cannot do it. And a lot of times it happened to me, but then after a while, it's not rocket science at the end. But you have to train. You have to get used to it.
I mean, practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
Right. And when I was my last flying job was Air Medical, and that was my first time experiencing night vision goggles, and they were great. I love NVG and flying aided. It's great, but flying into an off airport in a dark area with goggles, it's very hard to understand. You have really no perception of speed. So you're having to rely on your instrumentation. It's just it's not like traditional flying, right? And so it's and I remember having that same thought. I remember going home from the first night of training exercise and calling my wife and saying, I don't think I'm going to pass training. I mean, I can't even do I can't even land in this field at night. It's so complicated. But then the next night comes around, and then the next night. That's also happened with aircraft, new airframes for me. I don't know what it is, but every time I get into a new airframe, my first flight absolutely sucks.
Okay.
It could be from like an R-22 to an R-44 back in the day. And it sucked. And then R-44 to a Jet Ranger. It sucked. But then it's like I go home and I sleep on it, and I kind of think about it. Yeah. And then the second flight is always so much better. Yeah. So I always try to tell like students, like, hey, look, it's okay. Like it's okay to have this learning curve. It's it's uncomfortable. And even for me, sometimes it's basic stuff. Like you get so used to scanning one thing, and then you get to a new helicopter, and you're like, I don't even know where the airspeed indicator is, right?
Yeah,
Like you're just looking in the wrong area.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just that practice. You flew AStars for most of your career, right? But I'm sure you've had similar experiences.
Well, what you guys are talking about is something that I remember in flight school feeling exactly what you're describing. I felt defeated because here I am like you as a kid. I wanted to be a pilot my whole life, and here I've got this opportunity to be a pilot for the police department. But I feel like I can't do it. I can't hover. I can't be a pilot. I remember calling my friend who was our unit CFI. I'm like, man, I am struggling big time. What can I do to get through this? Because I feel like I'm not going to make it. And the one thing he said to me was the best advice I ever heard. He just said, trust the process. I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? And he said, just keep showing up. Trust the process. You'll be fine. And I remember going into my first check ride. It was for the private. And I called him again. I'm like, dude, I am not ready for this check ride. He goes, you're ready, or they wouldn't have said you're ready.
Send you off,
And he said, trust the process. Yeah. So ever since then, when I feel like I'm in a position where I'm what you're describing, I'm not worthy or capable of doing this thing, I just feel like I'm going to trust this process, and it's worked out.
Yeah,
so
it worked out.
trust the process for the folks that are listening.
Yeah.
And I mean, look at you, where you are today.
And today, when I fly in an AStar, I feel like I'm at the couch in my home.
Yeah.
I feel completely comfortable.
Yeah, it's so cool.
I know by now what I can do, and I also know what I'm not good at. So it makes me, I feel so comfortable. And maybe it's also because if you had some struggle, maybe it also, at the end, it pays off, I think.
Yeah.
So
I think that's part of the challenge of aviation that I love, is that it's not easy.
Yeah, it's not easy.
If it was easy, everybody would do it.
Yeah.
But it's challenging, and it pushes us every day to try something to be just a fragment of a percentage better, and I love that about it. It's great.
Yeah, right.
So I want to fast forward a little bit. Obviously, you start becoming more proficient. You're getting comfortable. You understand the operation. One part of Air Zermatt is rescuing, right? And I'm guessing that flying high altitudes in the mountains, daytime, nighttime, good weather, bad weather, I'm guessing there's a lot of complexity. Jon asked this question before we were recording, so I'm stealing your question.
No, go ahead.
So I appreciate it. But is there like a memorable rescue or maybe even your first rescue? I mean, what is that all like?
Oh man, I have tons of memories. I think I'm right now. I have about 3,000 rescue flights.
That's insane.
Jeez.
And I always tell, there are maybe 10 which you will never forget. And there are maybe 500 where you need you need to see something or you need to hear something. It's, you remember back. So, I mean, I had such bad stuff to experience. I remember we had once a bus accident. There were 23 children dead. So
that's
I think
horrible.
Yeah, that it doesn't get any worse than that. I think. I was flying in Nepal, in the Himalayas. I was up at 23,000 feet.
Holy cow!
Things you will never forget. I had, for example, one. I remember he was a lawyer from Switzerland, and he had a really bad ski accident, and his whole face was crushed. He lost one eye, and I flew him. It was somewhere near New Year's Eve, I remember. I flew him to Bern, to the hospital, and then a year later he invited the whole crew.
Wow. Oh, cool.
And up till and his kids are about the same age as my kid, so up until today I have a real friendship.
Really?
With
cool.
the whole family.
That's unique.
Yeah, these are really experiences. Yeah, it's hard to describe in words, I think.
You mentioned something about Nepal, and I know that you guys had assisted and helped some of the operators there. with high altitude flying.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about that. What is it like flying in the Himalayas? I mean, it's the tallest mountain range in the
it's
world.
Crazy. I mean, where can I start? You know, I mean, flying wise, for example, you're at some base camp from whatever mountain it is. They are at about 4,000-5,000 meters. What would that be? Maybe 14,000 feet, something like that. But it's still green. You know, there are still trees around.
It's crazy.
Here. So you would take off in a B3 somewhere in the trees, and you think, hey, what's going on?
Why is it so spongy?
Yeah. I have no power.
I have no power. What's going on? And then you look at the altimeter. It's like 14,000 feet.
Wow.
So that was crazy.
That's insane.
And then, of course, you have the mountains. I mean, we have quite steep faces.
Sure.
For example, if the Matterhorn North face, it's about 1,000 meters.
Just straight.
Yeah.
That's wild.
But in the Himalayas, it's like 2,000-3,000 meters. It's just, there's nothing below you. And you have your mountain guide attached to the rope to fly him to the patient. And I always told my the mountain guide he was one of also of Air Zermatt, and I always told him, I'm glad you're hanging down there. I'm not
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I would do. That I would not do.
No.
That takes a different level.
Yeah.
That's a Jason Quinn move right there.
That is a Jason Quinn. Yeah, there's another podcast called The Real Rescue. It's on our platform, the HeliCASTS platform. And Jason was a rescue swimmer for the Coast Guard.
Yeah,
so he's, I think he would be game to hang from a line and do that. Not me.
No.
Funny story, because we were awarded for that rescue. And I remember that was at the, back then it was called the Heli Expo.
Yeah, HI.
Yeah, and that was in Orlando. And there was the crew, you remember the Deepwater Horizon explosion. So that was the Coast Guard crew which were arriving at the Deepwater Horizon first.
Oh, interesting.
They were sitting at our table.
Oh, so
it was
you were...
so cool.
That is cool.
And then they told us, man, you must be completely nuts flying up to 23,000 feet. And I told him, well, you must be crazy flying out the ocean for hours in the
seriously.
pitch dark night. So that was interesting.
Both very complex operations.
That what makes the whole helicopter industry so great, isn't it?
Yeah.
There are so many varieties of work to do, which is fantastic.
And so many lives saved.
Oh yeah.
Right. I mean, Air Zermatt alone has probably impacted positively so many people's lives since 1968. And I know that you guys even really kind of pioneered air medical and really started utilizing helicopters very early on. So the fact that we get to be part of an industry that not only does really cool and badass stuff, but it's an industry that is meaningful. It helps people.
It is.
And I think that sometimes helicopters have a bit of a PR problem. I just talked to David about this in my last podcast. It's like people are scared of helicopters. You guys had a helicopter show on Netflix.
Yeah, right.
I'm guessing that's actually maybe helped some of the public be more comfortable with helicopters. How did that whole thing come about?
I don't really remember, to be honest, how that came up. We had a few shows we did with the Swiss television, which were great. They had we had a huge feedback from them, and it gave us also kind of a way to tell our story, first of all.
Yep.
And we are still the ones, of course. We are making a lot of noise. We are the CO, the carbon. How do you call it?
We're polluting the environment.
We're polluting, but I mean, I would say 90%. If you would leave out like the tourist flights, 90% or 85%, we are building something.
Yeah.
We are building infrastructure.
Of
we
course.
are building water supply lines, or we are building cable cars or whatever. We are rescuing people. So in public, this never, it's not common to say that.
Yeah.
It's always, they always see the bad stuff.
Of course.
And for us, it was quite good, to show what we are doing other stuff.
Yeah, to show the versatility.
Yeah.
And I think it's easy for the public to, have a bad feeling about helicopters. Yeah. Sometimes when they have accidents, it's very public. The Kobe Bryant, of course, accident did not help. But I think it's really neat. And that's one thing that we always try to push on our podcast is, whether it's law enforcement, right? I got to actually go up with LAPD recently. And,
nice.
Yeah. And I did a flight to see what they do. And not only was it fun, but it made me realize, like, oh, my gosh, this one helicopter within a 2-hour period helped catch, 6 bad guys.
Yeah, right.
And that's incredible for a big city like LA. And so, and then there's law enforcement. So public safety, there's air medical, but then there's utility, right? I had Pete on this morning from PG&E. Half of the country gets electricity from PG&E, and they use 50 to 75 helicopters at any given time to keep the power on.
I mean, the best example we have is heli-skiing. We do now it's, I would say March, April is the time for heli-skiing. So what are we, for the pilot, the helicopter is always loaded. It's heavy. You might have bad conditions. You might have wind conditions. So it's, for us, for our pilots, it's one of the best trainings they can get. To fly, it's going up high.
Yeah, high altitude.
Yeah, it's heavy. You have the snow. There is one flag here, and you have to get to the flag. You cannot get 2 yards away from the flag, because then you will end up in a whiteout. So that's fantastic training. And I just had a situation not long ago where we have certain spots we can land. So I'm flying to this site since 20 years, and I just had a situation. It was really strong wind from the west, and I tried something different. And I remember I came back to our pilot's office and I told him, never do that.
Don't do that.
It's not working very well.
That was not good.
Yeah. So these are all experiences you gain. Yeah. But the thing is, it's so hard to explain it to the public.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't understand it.
Because they will mostly say, oh, heli-ski, nobody can afford it, and it's only for the rich guys, things like that. Nobody needs it. Yeah, we need it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need it.
Yeah.
For April, too. I know what I'm doing. Wait, I'm coming. I'm going to.
Well, what you brought up is interesting. It essentially is a training tool for the pilots and the other missions. And it's nice that you have paying passengers that are offsetting the costs of that training, which is really cool. I want to go back to the Netflix show for a second, because we talk about all these helicopter operations, and for the most part, we're out of the public's eye view when we're completing these successful missions, whether we're saving a life or we're catching a bad guy or we're finding a good guy. Most of the time, the public does not know about it. Netflix comes along and documents what you guys do. Not only does that benefit your company and highlight the good work you're doing, but it shines a light on the industry and shows these young kids at home, hey, you could do this. Think of 3-year-old you.
Yeah, exactly.
But now worldwide, kids are seeing that, and they can be like, I could do this because I saw the show, or I want to do this. Yeah. So I think it's really important from like a recruitment standpoint in the industry for operators to be highlighted, and that's kind of what we're trying to do through the podcast, through Verticon magazine, is just highlight these really cool operations that are going on worldwide, so people are inspired and be like, I want to do that, And what you're doing is amazing. It's so cool.
It's the coolest. You guys do the coolest flying, and probably the most beautiful.
thank you to our sponsor, Robinson Helicopter Company, the choice for unrivaled safety and reliability so you can accomplish any mission with confidence. For more than half a century, Robinson has been at the forefront of the helicopter industry. From the R-22 to the R-66 turbine, Robinson makes helicopters accessible so more people can accomplish more missions. Climb higher. For additional information, visit www.robinsonheli.com.
It is. We have. I'm not sure if you know our base. There is an elevator going up.
Yeah.
So it's not that you drive to the base. There is literally an elevator where you drive in, and you get up to our base.
Yeah, it's incredible.
So now, 20 years later since I started, I sometimes if I get out of the elevator, I still have goosebumps.
Really?
Oh, that's cool.
If I see the helicopters approaching and I'm walking up there to my office, oh man, it still
fires you up.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So go from cockpit to now running the company. How does that all happen? What was the evolution of you working as a line pilot and now being the CEO?
I was the last 10 years I was also flying on a business jet. Also there, funny story really. I mean, I can tell me if I'm talking too much. But
No.
That's the point of this.
I was at a certain point, and I wasn't really that long at Air Zermatt, maybe 7-8 years. And I almost don't dare to say it, but I thought I'm ready for something different.
Yeah.
So, but I really had nothing in mind. But because I was doing the whole training at Swissair back then, I always had the jets in somewhere in my mind.
Interesting.
Way in the back somewhere. It didn't really go away. So then I was, because all my licenses, of course, they were not valid anymore. So I did the whole IFR licenses, the whole, what I needed to fly an airplane. I did it again.
Interesting.
In my spare time, but without having any, perspective or.
Sure.
So I always thought maybe there is one day and I will get a nice offer. So I want to be in the position where I can say, oh, that would be awesome, or no, thank you very much. I just want to be there where I would say, oh, I would love to, but I can't.
Yeah.
So that's why I made the whole licenses again. So a year later, or not even maybe half a year later, I had the opportunity to fly a business jet.
Okay.
So back then I was a chief pilot of Air Zermatt. And then that opportunity came up, to fly a business jet. And I thought, oh man, yeah. I mean, I didn't really know what to do for weeks and weeks. And at one point I remember the chief pilot of that other company from the jet. He told me, so he needs a decision now. So I thought, okay, if I'm not doing it now, I will never do it.
Yeah.
So I took the
Oh my gosh.
and
Good for you.
Of course, everyone was telling me you're absolutely crazy. You're the chief pilot of Air Zermatt and you go away
to go fly an airplane.
Yeah, what is the matter with you? But I just thought first of all it's a good way to open your horizon a little bit.
Yeah, of course.
And I had a talk with the owner of Air Zermatt. First, he wasn't really happy, of course. But I remember there was one day I was in that famous elevator with him, and then he told me, you know what, go and try it out. If you don't like it, come back to us. And then I was kind of...
Yeah, that kind of gave you the permission.
Yeah, exactly. And then I flew on that jet for about 10 years.
Oh my gosh.
But I was always flying with Air Zermatt. It was about half.
Okay.
So I the only difference was these 10 years I was a freelance pilot. I was not really, on the paycheck of Air Zermatt, which I never liked, by the way. It always felt kind of awkward.
Weird, yeah. Being like a contractor.
Yeah, in Zermatt.
Yeah, you're like, this is my company.
Yeah, I'm not going away. I just want to try something different.
Yeah.
So, and then I did that for 10 years, and after 10 years, I also had to say, now it's good. So it was a really great time I had, but you were always on duty, of course. I could plan nothing.
Yeah.
So you would plan I don't know, like a children's birthday, whatever. You could be sure that you were out flying.
Yeah, of course.
So, and then I was looking for something different, and then that position opened up, and I thought, hello, I would be happy to come back. So and then it went quite quickly. Because of course I knew everyone. I knew most of the board of directors as well, and I mean, it was basically a discussion: do we want an external person, or do we want somebody that knows
in-house.
the whole in-house? Yeah, and they decided to leave it in-house. And also the previous CEO Gerald, he was supporting me a lot, and really it went quite quickly, I would say.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the little kid, Daniel, would you ever dreamt that you would be running
No.
Air Zermatt?
Never. I mean, literally, I got to the point where they told me you will never fly there.
Yeah.
No, I would have never thought of it. Never, ever.
I think it's a nice lesson, because I think at anything you do in life, there's people that tell you that you can't do this or do that, and you just never know how it's going to shake out, especially if you're willing to work hard, put the time in, build the relationships. It's just incredible.
I always say, if you have the passion, things will come right.
Yeah.
If you have the fire, or the passion for something, it will come. It will come the right way, I'm sure.
What I'm always kind of interested in, I always ask people this. It's kind of one of my coins. Is the idea of your day in the life. So when you get back home next week and you're back at Zermatt and you're working, it's 9 o'clock on a Monday morning. What does the rest of your day look like?
Well, now I've been away for 2 weeks. I probably have to get through the whole email.
A mountain of emails. The Matterhorn of emails.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Good one, John.
Yeah.
But it's so nice. We are quite a young team. So if you imagine, it's maybe 4 or 5 years ago, we had the first retirement in the history of the company.
Wow.
Okay. So now, one after the other, we have now quite a tight, I call it a generation change going on. So we are now a really young team, and I know, it must be the goal for me. I don't, for the company, it shouldn't matter if I'm there or not. So these 2 weeks, I almost had nothing to do with the company, because I'm completely relaxed. They manage it.
Yeah, they'll take care of it.
They will take care of it. We have a young executive board, so everyone is highly motivated, and they. I cannot say it, but they don't need me. So I shouldn't say that.
Don't say that.
We'll edit that part out.
Yeah, we'll take that part out. We'll have it dubbed in. They need me. It's that's a great part, though. That means that you have done the right job at bringing the right people on.
That's what I'm focused most. Yeah.
Is hiring the right people.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's easy for people that own companies or run companies to sometimes think that they're the most important person, And what you find out, I think, is the best leaders know that they're not the best person for every job.
Exactly.
And you can't do every job.
Yeah.
And so by bringing in the right talent. Now, one problem, I noticed this with me, right? I left flying full-time to start my business and selling aircraft. And so I don't get to fly as often anymore. Are you still getting to fly as much as you like?
I mean, the goal for me is to fly 1 day per week.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah. I don't reach that goal often, but I don't fly a lot anymore, but the days I fly, I enjoy it very much.
Like the best.
Oh, cool.
And it's so nice also to be at the front, be with the people, be with the clients.
Yeah.
You see what matters, where do we have to improve? For me, it's a great experience.
Yeah, it's a great way to really connect.
Yeah.
Any operation that you guys do, is there a particular, like, oh, I'm going to go and do that because that's what I really enjoy doing?
We have some of these, yeah. I mean, I have a personal favorite, and this is, we have, because Zermatt is a ski area, of course. So every time in October, they put the artificial, we call it is that in English, like the snow cannons?
Yeah.
Is that the same word?
Yeah, they make snow cannons.
Snow cannons. So you position all the snow cannons, and it's in the nicest time with the colors in the forest.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Oh, I always try to get that.
Yeah, you're like, I want that
one day in a year.
Yeah.
I always try to get
That's your day.
Yeah, that's
cool.
my day.
You can pull rank a little bit on that day. Like, sorry. That's awesome. I'm guessing that there's a lot of. I actually know a couple Americans that have told me before that their dream job is Air Zermatt.
Okay.
Do you have international pilots, or is a lot of your workforce from Switzerland?
We have international, or we had international pilots, but. In one example from Germany, the thing is we have, with all the construction work, you have to be fluent in German.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All that, for example, the forestry guys, you cannot talk English with them.
Of course, yeah.
They will rip your head off.
Yeah, it's not okay.
Yeah. So that's you have to be fluent in German.
Sprechen ein bisschen Deutsch.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll keep working on it. All my dreams are dashed. Well, Daniel, thank you so much for coming on.
You're very
this
welcome.
is
Thank you for having
so
me.
cool. I definitely want to take you up on going to Zermatt. I would love to see it.
Yeah.
How big is Zermatt as like a town?
I would say the people living all year, it's about 5,000 to 6,000.
Okay, so not very big.
But you have to keep in mind Zermatt, it's after Geneva and Zurich, the third most nights, touristic nights.
Yeah.
Basically the third largest. How do you say that? If one night spending in Zermatt, it counts for one. So Zermatt is number 3 after the big cities of Switzerland, which are not big for you, of course.
Yeah, of course, but
Geneva and Zurich, it's number 3. So in the high season, like Christmas, New Year's Eve, there are about 40,000 people.
Yeah, so
there.
it's a huge tourism.
Yeah.
How much pride does Zermatt have in Air Zermatt?
A lot.
A lot of pride.
A lot of pride. Yeah, we are very heavily part of not only Zermatt, the whole district.
Yeah.
We have a huge. Help me out with the word.
Footprint in the area?
Yeah, and people identify also with our company. So
I mean, it's iconic, really.
It is, yeah.
And now it's worldwide iconic.
Yeah.
I think it's probably one of the most recognizable brands in helicopters.
Yeah.
If helicopters had a Coca-Cola,
it would be Air
Zermatt.
I like that.
Yeah. And I think that's so cool. And so I'm just grateful. We tried to do this in Europe, and the other day it was kind of funny, actually. I'm on the phone walking around the hall here, and Daniel and I met in Amsterdam. We all stayed at the same hotel, actually. So we would see kind of every day. Right. And I remember thinking, this is so cool. I'm like kind of friends with the CEO of Air Zermatt now. And then the other day I'm with Hillary, my wife, and I'm on the phone, and I see you. And I'm like, oh, man, I want to talk to him to see if he'll come on the podcast, but I'm on the phone. So I was on the phone following you.
Stalking him.
For like 10 minutes. And he would turn around.
Nothing to see here.
And then he would start walking again. I would start walking. My wife is like, what are you doing? I'm like, it's fine. So sorry for stalking you.
No, I didn't notice it anyway.
But so grateful for you coming on.
Thank you.
I want to do this again. And I think it would be super fun to do maybe, actually come to the operation sometime.
Yeah.
And see it firsthand and, write about it and podcast about it. And, or not, and just go and have a good time, too. That would all work, too. And heli skiing, I mean, that would be. I ski 2 or 3 days a week.
Okay. Oh, nice.
I live pretty close to Mount Bachelor, so I'm skiing all the time. So heli skiing, though, I've never done that. That's pretty cool.
Bucket list.
Jon, any? I know that you do kind of some fun things on the Hangar Z podcast of any fun outros or anything?
No, I just would like to thank you for joining us. It was really inspirational hearing your story. Again, it highlights how you have this dream, and you just pursue that dream. Do everything in your power to make that dream a reality. So hearing you tell your story really illustrates that to me. And, man, I just thank you again for coming on, for motivating the folks that are listening, and for being a part of this community. It's really cool. You're very kind, and I just thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You have a fun personality, too. Sometimes helicopter people can be a little uptight.
Grumpy.
A little grumpy.
I think you're just talking about yourself.
I am. And we got authentic Swiss Army knife.
Yeah.
And we got beanies.
Beanies,
and some other. What do you call? What's the word beanie for you?
We call it a cap.
A cap.
Yeah.
In Canada, they're called a toque.
Toque.
Oh, okay.
And with MHM being a Canadian company, I'm learning a little bit more. So, Daniel, thank you so much for coming on. To our listeners, thank you guys so much for supporting the Helicopter Podcast, the Hangar Z Podcast, and the entire platform. We wouldn't have this if it wasn't for you. And so because of that, we thank you. And it just puts me in a position where I get to have amazing conversations with amazing people within this industry, guys like Daniel. Jon, thank you for your content at the Hangar Z. If you haven't checked out the Hangar Z podcast, you got to go over. In fact, Jon is really kind of like the original gangster, the OG, when it comes to podcasting, specifically in this space. So head over there, check out the Real Rescue as well, the Vertical MRO, and the new Vertical Valor.
Valor Flight Crew.
Valor
Flight Crew podcast.
Why am I having such a hard time?
It's pretty cool. It highlights kind of what you're talking about. A lot of the stories there that you guys are involved with would be a great fit for there. So maybe we'll drag you over, hopefully, to the Valor Flight Crew, the Hangar Z podcast, or the Real Rescue podcast. I know Quinny would love to talk to you. So any of those podcasts, if you guys out there haven't listened to it, have a listen. Thanks, Halsey, for including me in this conversation. And you're amazing. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Daniel. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.